Hi, everyone. Sal Khan here from Khan Academy. Welcome to our homeroom live stream. I'm very excited about our guest today. We have Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. But before we jump into that conversation, I will give my standard announcement, a reminder that Khan Academy is a not-for-profit organization. We can only exist through philanthropic donations from folks like yourself. So if you're in a position to do so, please think about going to khanacademy.org/donate. I also want to give a special thanks to several organizations that have stepped out of the woodwork, especially when they saw that even pre-COVID, we were running at a deficit. And then as COVID hit, as you can imagine, Khan Academy's traffic has gone up dramatically. And so they've helped us close that deficit, although we still are running a deficit. But special thanks to Bank of America, Google.org, Novartis, Fastly, and AT&T, and the Amgen Foundation, and many other organizations that have helped support Khan Academy over the years. But if you're in a position to do so, please think about making a donation. So with that out of the way, I'm super excited to introduce our guest, Satya Nadella, a man who might not need any introduction, CEO of Microsoft. Satya, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Sal. It's such a pleasure to be with you.
So there's a lot to talk about, obviously, in the world. We were briefly talking about it before the live stream got started. And I want to encourage anyone who's watching over YouTube or Facebook. You can put your questions in the message boards, and we have team members who are going to surface the interesting questions. Not to put any judgment on the things we don't surface. We'll surface as much as we can. But Satya, I really just want to start at a personal level and then kind of spiral out from there. You're the CEO of Microsoft, one of the most successful, storied, largest tech companies, firms in the world. Did you imagine that this is where you would end up being? What did you think you were going to do? We have a lot of young people watching. What did you think you were going to do when you were a teenager or in your early 20s?
For sure, I didn't imagine that this is where I would end up, Sal. I grew up in India. I grew up in the city of Hyderabad and Delhi, but mostly in Hyderabad. In the 70s, when I was growing up, Hyderabad is not even what it is today. It is a place where it is a little removed even from what was mainstream of India. It's before satellite television, before even a lot of the American pop culture sort of showed up. Where I was growing up. But I must say, when I reflect back, I somehow had the space and time to explore. I remember the summers. I was recently recounting this to my own daughters. I mean, I read a lot of Russian authors. I played a lot of cricket. Those perhaps were more my passion. And then later on, in fact, I'm always say that I'm a product of two great American things. Somehow American technology reached me where I was growing up, fell in love with computing in its early form. And then later on, was able to come here for education and then get a job. And it's the enlightened American immigration policy that let me live the American dream. And so that's sort of how it all came about. But clearly, my first passions were more, I would say, cricket and maybe a little bit of literature.
Maybe you thought you were going to be a cricketer. We already have a ton of questions coming in from YouTube. Nupur Mehta and Saistha Ranjan. They're asking a similar question. What inspired you to seek your education in the U.S., or what inspired you to kind of seek opportunity in the U.S.?
I mean, to me, by the time I was in the undergrad system in India and I did electrical engineering, it was clear in my mind that, in fact, I look back at it, I got a Renaissance education for tech. What I mean by that is I started at the very bottom of the tech stack, right, which is, at the transistor, and slowly stepped building up my level of abstraction. I was clear that I wanted to come to the U.S., do computer science, and hope to, I was not clear whether I would get to stay here, but I clearly wanted to work in the computing industry. So that's what led me to education, come to graduate school, and then do what I subsequently did.
And what's your sense? Fast forward a little bit, you enter into industry, and obviously, I've known you for many years. We've had conversations at various events. And I'm not saying this just to be nice to you. You're an incredibly humble, approachable person. I always find, these events, I'm intimidated by a lot of folks, but I always gravitate to you because I feel comfortable talking to you. What do you think is about, what traits did you have or ways of viewing the world that you think allowed you to be successful in the ways that you have?
That's an interesting question. So, it's always hard to be super objective on yourself and what is sort of your quote-unquote superpowers or what makes you successful. And what are also perhaps your shortcomings. The one thing that I do feel I have somehow innately is that level of curiosity, right? I mean, here's the thing. I don't remember ever having a job at Microsoft where I felt like, I needed to wait for my next job to do my best work. Quite frankly, when I first joined in '92, I thought I had the greatest job. It might be the last job I have, but I loved it. And so approaching even what you're doing, what is the everyday mundane, with that level of curiosity, energy, that posture of learning, I think that's sort of perhaps a lot more innate in me. I'm not saying I'm perfect by any measure, but I never was waiting. Like one of my, people ask me, what advice do you have? I say, just one thing is don't wait for your next job to do your best work. And that perhaps in the long, at least to me, for me has been a very helpful attribute.
I want to double click on that because there's a stereotype you have, if you watch movies or you just read business literature, that in order to succeed in the corporate world, not just in America, in the world, that there's a stereotype that you have to be very competitive, you have to kind of be elbowing out other people, you have to be marketing yourself. And I'm saying this very genuinely, you don't seem to be that type of person. And I think I tend to be a pretty good read of folks. I mean, is that true in certain cases that those types of traits do help people, or despite that, how did you stick out? How did people notice that you could have that contribution?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think I don't think being dogmatic about any one trait as the only trait to success is probably the worst dogma you can have. But I would say, I remember even the interview process for the CEO. One of the directors, I had a conversation with them, and he asked me whether, I really wanted to be CEO. I said, only if you want me to be CEO. He said, no, that's not how you answer. If you want to be a CEO, you got to say, I want this job. And then I remember going to Steve Ballmer later and telling him, hey, this is what happened. He says, you know what, Satya, it's too late to change. I'm glad you answered the way you should answer because that's who you are. And so it worked for me, Sal. I don't think I'll claim again that this is the only thing that matters. But it comes from, to your previous question, it comes from a level of confidence I have in myself. It's not that I don't have confidence. But it's not that I'm waiting for someone and something else exogenous to recognize it or be rewarded for it. That's not what is intrinsically motivating to me.
How did you define your success? Did you define it as, hey, I want to become a CEO of Microsoft and achieve certain business targets, or is it something that you haven't thought a lot about, or have you defined it in other ways?
I mean, I must say, even that idea of what success looks like or what am I aspiring to do has changed. I mean, over the years. There was a period of time, as I said, oh God, I got to make it to my state team to play cricket. Of course, I failed at that miserably. Then I set a different goal, and I said, God, I got to become a good engineer and get a job. Got there. So yeah, I mean, over the time, then quite frankly, one of the bigger changes in my life that happened was when my son Zain was born, and he's got cerebral palsy. It was a major change in our life for both my wife Anu and me. He helped me redefine even what was I aspiring to do? What is it like to be able to see life through his eyes, recognize the role I have as a father, also being what can I do given the positions I was in for the broader disability community, finding more meaning in that work, using Microsoft as a platform to find that meaning. So to your point, over the years, I would say if there's been anything, it's ability to build more empathy for what's happening around me with the people both in my family and at work and in the communities, and help that sort of change even my aspirations, goals, objectives. And I think that's what happens to all of us. It's just the life's experiences that shape you, and our ability to let it shape us in all the good ways is perhaps been very defining for me.
And one of the things that I've talked about in previous live streams, and I'll say it because your name kind of leads me there, is that, in Indian philosophy, there's this notion of sattvic work, where you do good work for the sake of doing it, versus rajasic work, which is work because you think you're going to get a positive outcome, or out of fear, out of a negative outcome. And obviously your name, Satya, comes from the same root in Sanskrit, meaning truthful work. And I think a lot of what you described kind of epitomizes that. I am curious, once you got the CEO job at Microsoft, on one level, I'm sure that was exhilarating. I'm sure on another level that was scary. From an outsider's point of view, Microsoft had its, so to speak, heyday in the 90s. And it maybe seemed when you took the job that it was past that heyday. How did you think about it? Because obviously when we now look at hindsight after several years, Microsoft seems to be in a bit of a renaissance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a consummate insider, Sal. And so I've grown up in this place. I've been here now close to 30 years. And so, the thing for me, you're right, absolutely. The job was very different, but frankly, even just one level removed, which I was working for Steve at that time. I thought I understood the nature of the job, but quite frankly, the multi-stakeholder responsibility that one has to take when you become CEO was very different. And the good news was I was at least, had that ability to quickly learn on the job, had an amazing team of men and women who sort of came together, rallied around me. I was clearly not Bill Gates nor Steve Ballmer, and I was able to sort of help take advantage of the amazing people around me and scale. But to your core piece, I think that the Microsoft that I knew and I grew up in both had many things we got right and some things we got wrong. And so I just simply pattern matched. I said, look, let's go back to the very creation of the company, right? When Bill and Paul started Microsoft, they said, we're going to create technology so that others can create more technology, right? We built the basic interpreter for the Altair as the first product. And I said in 2014, when I became CEO, it's more relevant to create technology so that others can create technology, as software, so to speak, is empowering the world. And so I said, okay, let's go back and have that sense of purpose. Let's not do things out of envy, but let's do things out of what we naturally can do, uniquely contribute. And then also have a culture. In fact, I picked up the cultural attribute which I felt was important for Microsoft. To your point about in late 90s, we were very successful, and from ancient Greece to modern Silicon Valley, there's only one challenge, right, which is hubris that comes with success. So I said, okay, how do we get out of that know-it-all mindset and become learn-it-all? So I picked up Carol Dweck's work and said, let's have our cultural meme of growth mindset, or confronting one's fixed mindset each day. And those two pillars, Sal, probably more than anything else. I mean, of course, you've got to pick your strategies right, products right, a lot of things you've got to get right. But to me, the two necessary conditions for any firm's long-term performance is, why do you exist? Can you answer that clearly? Have that sense of purpose resonate on a daily basis with the people, as well as the culture and how you go about doing things. So the why and the how are sort of the most important to be able to do the right picking for the what.
And as you go on that journey, I mean, now in hindsight, it sounds very elegant and very like, yes, focus on empowering others and becoming a learning organization. But, given Microsoft's reach at the time, and obviously increasing reach since then, the complexity of what it does, were there moments where you kind of woke up in the middle of the night and said, I'm not sure if I can do this. I'm not sure if I'm making the right decisions?
I mean, every day, right? I mean, every day you have moments of doubt, and you also have the moments of, I would say, clarity and energy. And, I sort of think about leadership is all about that, right? Which is, as leaders, you innately have to go at it and create clarity when there is all kinds of complexity and uncertainty. You have to create energy as a leader to be able to rally people around a particular sense of purpose and a mission and a direction. And then solve what is an unsolvable problem, right? I mean, you have to remove some constraints. Sometimes we tie ourselves in knots and say we can't move. You got to be able to let go of some things and then boldly go to a new place and then work out some of the challenges that come with it. I mean, in our case, for example, one of the bigger changes we made was our business model shift. More than technology for most companies, Sal, I feel that the fundamental economics of what made you successful are no longer as valid, is when you falter. And so that was one of the things that we had to sort of overcome in pretty harsh ways. But it's sort of, without it, you'd sort of be worse off. And that, I think, is where, that also goes back to a little bit of this multi-stakeholder side, right? Which is understanding what investors want, what employees want, what customers want, and to be able to find the right balance.
No. I mean, you make it sound simple, but I can't even imagine. It sounds. I operate at a much smaller scale than you do, and you seem to have a much clearer way of dealing with things. Just fast forwarding to today, or to the recent situation we're in, obviously with the pandemic around COVID. Microsoft, obviously, as a leader of an organization, you've had to think about how do you lead the organization itself, support the people as you go through this transition. But Microsoft also has a very big role in this, being a technology provider, empowering digital work. I'm curious how the transition has been for Microsoft as an organization, and whether this has kind of changed your perspective on the nature of work, digital work, remote work, and does it lead to any new directions for the organization's strategy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you and I were just talking even before getting on this call, I think this is just unprecedented, right? We're running, in some sense, one of the most large-scale experiments of remote everything. And we'll come out of this with a lot of learning, some things that sort of we will leave behind, some things which will be real structural change. From a Microsoft perspective, it started for me by first grounding myself and the company on the safety of our own employees. So we were very early on. We said, look, we're going to follow public health guidance. And in fact, when we sent people home, whether it's in Silicon Valley or in Seattle, we were a little ahead of even the public health guidance around work from shelter in place. And so we sort of took that because we wanted our employees to be safe. But then at the same time, we realized that we needed to be digital first responders to all the first responders out there, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in the critical public infrastructure or education. And so it is amazing to see how all of those people were able to also go remote, continue operations. So at a high level, Sal, I think about this response phase, recovery phase, and the reimagine phase, and they're all happening simultaneously. Interestingly enough, digital tech is that most malleable of resource we have to help companies be more resilient, as well as technology that helps you adapt to change. If you're a retailer, even you're a small business, but you're a physical retailer, you now need to do curbside pickup, right? So you need a little app for that, or you need to be able to do contactless shopping. You need some technology for that. Or if you're in healthcare, I mean, we've been talking about telemedicine for decades. Guess what? I don't think we're ever going back to outpatient consults, which don't have some form of an AI triage first, and then a telemedicine session, and then you show up at a hospital, which I think would be fantastic for our healthcare costs. Education, of course. So Microsoft's really helping organizations of all sizes in all industries really get through this crisis, while first sustaining economic activity, but more importantly, reimagining how they can use some of these technologies to reconfigure themselves for what are going to be real secular changes.
And we have a question here related to that from YouTube. Mo Fradi says, what are you and Microsoft currently doing to optimize the digital world in light of COVID? And Maybe on that part of it, I mean, just touching on what you already talked about, how has work at Microsoft changed? Have you noticed a difference in productivity because essentially you have a fully distributed remote workforce now? And if not, does that lead to new directions for even how the Microsoft itself is organized or where people do their work?
No, absolutely. In fact, this is another place where we're deep in the data and the social science of it even, I would say, to understand what's happening. Sal, I would say there are three at least dimensions broadly to even talk about productivity. The first is, how are people collaborating to get work done, right? I mean, ultimately, individuals work in teams, and it's a question of how is work getting done? How are people collaborating? And, it's not just meetings, right? One thing is to say, well, everybody is on a Teams call or what have you, and you have the ability to do lots of meetings. That's important, but work happens before meetings, during meetings, after meetings. So how do you have the full workflow, the full collaboration? So that's one aspect we're learning a lot. You see measured on collaboration, like in fact, we even studied GitHub and the productivity of developers, absolutely, as measured by pull requests and pushes, commits, so, code reviews, huge. So you could say at one level, we're maintaining large amounts of productivity. A lot of meeting time, right? We're also seeing that multimodal, like people chat, people collaborate on documents, also collaborating during meetings, that connections, like the number of meetings, short meetings have been on a rise because that's how the substitute for those hallway conversations and meetings physically where you would have the side conversations now are all moved to digital and so on. So that's a little bit on collaboration. Second thing is learning. After all, if you say that a firm is about people in the organization continuously learning, that's changing, right? I mean, think about, I was just talking to the intern class of Microsoft today. We have, 5,000 interns. They're all remote for the first time. So I'm curious to see how are they getting mentored? How are they learning? How are they contributing even to the learning of Microsoft? So that system, I think, is going through massive change right now. In order to onboard a new employee, to get new teams to work together, you need to be able to do that upskilling, reskilling, learning in the flow of work. So massive change. The other one, Sal, is first line work and knowledge work. A lot of times we talk about how good remote is for knowledge work, but except there are a lot of people who are going into the manufacturing plants, building those respirators and the masks and all of the equipment that we need. So for example, that's a place where the expertise is being bridged to the front line as well, using things like VR or AR and techniques like that. Very helpful in terms of just the reskilling. The last one, to your point, is mental and the well-being. Even inside of Microsoft, we're realizing that the 9 to 5, that's, first of all, it was never the case perhaps, but it's much more acute. People are taking advantage. The good news is people are taking advantage of the flexibility. They work early in the morning, maybe later in night. Then they have other responsibilities, and the work, a group around them is also accommodative of it. But we're also recognizing that video meetings do cause fatigue. In fact, we did an EEG study which says 30 minutes into your first meeting, because of the high levels of concentration, you have fatigue. So that's what even led to the innovation around this together mode in Teams, where instead of being all in these postage stamp boxes, if we could be on a stage together, like a conference room or what have you, it changes the mental frame and the fatigue. So those are the types of things that we're looking at to say, how do we facilitate better habits and nudges in the system, even for better habits, better transitions, and less fatigue and better well-being, as well as learning, as well as collaboration.
And there's so much in there, and I am so y'all looked at things like the productivity of engineers on things like GitHub. So is it roughly neutral is what you saw? Or
in fact,
I guess there could be
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I don't think we really have all the definitive metrics. So, for example, if you measure it by task, I think you could even say for certain roles, I mean, it's not a universal statement. We may be even more productive than we were before, because after all, there's substitution of commute times. There is sort of more flexibility, and that flexibility leads to better productivity and what have you. One of the things that we are also trying to do is what are the long-term effects, right? So what, creation of new, like one thing is, are we burning the backlog or are you creating new? Is it different by different communities? The open source community by definition was well prepped because of all the social capital that gets built in open source is fundamentally remote. Whereas certain groups that worked closely together are burning down their social capital by going remote. And now they need to form new capital, new connections in order to do innovative things. So that's one of the things that we're trying to study.
That's fascinating. We could talk for hours just about that, but I want to make sure I have time to get to the broadest view of the economy and the role of technology in the economy, because it looks like when you just look at things like the stock market versus the real economy, we're kind of in a tale of two universes right now. You look at those of us who are fortunate to be able to do remote work, to be able to do work in technology. It seems like to some degree, not that much has changed. In some cases, it might have even gotten better because of flexibility or productivity. Where do you see all of this going? Where do let's extrapolate for a few minutes on, is this a real trend? People have always talked about technology as maybe being it could be an equalizer, but it also could be a source of inequality. Is COVID just accelerating that?
No, it's a great point. I mean, if you look at it, even on the trend side, Sal, it's a complex situation, right? We have obviously the health crisis and the pandemic. We have the economic dislocation that is getting created primarily because of the pandemic, but it's going to bring about structural change even post-pandemic. So, i.e., its impacts are going to be long-lasting. There is the societal change, right? There is all of the challenges of race and the general issues in our society. There is the world order, as we know of it, or globalization, which drove at least the capitalism for 30 years, is fundamentally getting reconfigured. So you put it all together, I think we have to sort of be mindful of multiple things. So if there is a silver lining, I do believe we have to get better as every person and every institution in using, say, the malleability of digital technology to help us cope with this change. But to your point, we also therefore have to deal with some of the issues, right? Which is one is it's the whatever happens next has to be more inclusive, right? Whether it's in education, do we have broadband connectivity? Do we have the devices? Are we helping small businesses and large businesses? Is it across all sectors? It can't be just about sort of high tech as a sector. It has to be about every part of the economy. It has to be about knowledge workers and first line workers. So whatever comes out now has to be much more inclusive, because otherwise we're going to have a 90%, 80%, 70% economy that does nobody any good. The second thing is trust, because the other thing that's going to be massively talked about is, as technology becomes so pervasive in our lives and work, what's the integrity of it, right? You can talk about it as AI ethics, you can say privacy, you can say security, internet safety, all first-class issues. Then the other aspect to me is all around even the core rights and safety and, take even human rights. I mean, access is one thing, and reskilling and upskilling is going to be a massive issue. So some of these considerations, and sustainability is the other one, so are going to be things that we will have to make first class into our discourse on saying, as we come out of all of these multiple challenges, will we be able to navigate to a better place by taking a different approach to economic growth at a fundamental level? That's what I believe. Economic growth is super important, right? There's no point saying that, like, let's sacrifice economic growth, because without economic growth, you can't solve some of the other challenges. But we do need to solve these other challenges alongside economic growth.
Well, one last question. A lot of young people, and there's a lot of questions along this flavor. This is your chance to be kind of Uncle Satya for a second. what advice would you, just to finish off on, what advice would you have given to yourself 30 years ago, or would you give to a lot of the folks watching who are kind of like yourself, or maybe like yourself 30 years ago?
It's a great question. I mean, I recently wrote a Father's Day post. I lost my father last year, and he was a great influence in my life. And as I was reflecting on his own life and how he lived it, and by somehow him living that life, what did he teach me? The one thing that I would say is, how do you keep that curiosity and thirst for learning, that intellectual honesty, and not being dogmatic or fall victim to doctrine and thinking? That used to be the one thing he would always say. That's I look back even in my own life, I think I've been shaped by that. I've benefited from that. So keep curiosity alive.
No, that's super valuable. Well, thank you so much, Satya. I think I speak for many folks, which is, as impressive as your role in the world is, I think the way that you do your role is that much more impressive. So thank you so much for joining. Your inspiration for a lot of folks.
No, thank you so much, Sal. Thanks for the opportunity. Look forward to being in touch.
So thank you, everyone, for joining. Once again, another conversation. Obviously, I would have loved to spoke for hours. There's so many dimensions to some of the things that Satya just touched on. But thank you so much for joining. We actually have a very action-packed week coming up. Tomorrow, we're going to have Hassan Minhaj, who is, of course, the creator of Patriot Act. And then on Thursday, we're going to have Nicole Hannah-Jones, known for a reporter who started the 1619 Project, 1619, the year that slavery came to the New World, came to the Americas, so to speak. But it's a perspective on the history of slavery. So we look forward to both of these guests and having more really, really interesting conversations like the one we just had. So thank you so much for joining.